And now, Luke chapter 23, verses 18 through 56. But they all cried out together, "Away with this man, and release to us Barabbas," a man who had been thrown into prison for an insurrection started in the city, and for murder. Pilate addressed them once more, desiring to release Jesus, but they kept shouting, "Crucify, crucify him." A third time he said to them, "Why, what evil has he done? I have found in him no guilt deserving death. I will therefore punish and release him." But they were urgent, demanding with loud cries that he should be crucified, and their voices prevailed. So Pilate decided that their demands should be granted. He released the man who had been thrown into prison for insurrection and murder, for whom they asked, but he delivered Jesus over to their will. Here we have the Via della Rosa, where Jesus Christ ended up carrying his cross up to Golgotha, the place of the skull. A place and a position which is the most significant place in all of human history. Culturally and spiritually. And here is the historically accepted site from which is believed that Jesus was flogged. This is the Church of the Flagellation, a representation of the crown of thorns. Them releasing Barabbas instead of Jesus. Where Pilate claimed he was innocent of Christ's blood. Unless the flagellation and the trials and miseries that he has gone through for us. He was pierced for our transgressions, beaten for our iniquities, and by his stripes we are healed. This chapel, of course, was built during the Crusader period, during the Kingdom of Jerusalem. In 1838, this was purchased by the Franciscans.
And of course, Catholic sites under the Franciscans, who are the custodians of the holy sites.
Yes.
So Franciscans is the order of Saint Francis of Assisi.
And here's the Church of the Condemnation, where Jesus Christ was handed over. This was rebuilt in 1904 by Wendelin Hinterkusser.
Let's have a look here.
Of course, the Hebrews had said to him, "If you don't give us Jesus to have him crucified, you're no friend of Caesar."
This is Jerusalem, the second temple period. Second temple meaning Ezra, Nehemiah, meaning when the Romans or town Romans under Herod the Great enlarges the temple, meaning this Jerusalem time of Jesus. This is just the court structure that happened in the year 70. The Romans destroyed Jerusalem, destroyed the temple in the year 70. Roman under Titus. So, which means that this is practically where we are now. Here. This is the corner. Actually, we covered the western wall. This is the western wall. Everything is Temple Mount. This is where we've seen the gray dome. This is somewhere here, the golden dome of the rock. We planned to go in here to cover the site and come out here, but we couldn't. So we moved from the western wall came here. So this would be the fortress built by the Romans.
Antonia Fortress?
Antonia Fortress, in honor of Mark Antony, where Pilate is seated. Jesus brought here to Pilate. And this is correct because this fortress where we are now and everything on that side of the street is Temple Mount, but the Noah. And this is the way it is. The fortress is built because it's overlooking Temple Mount. All the Jews are coming here. The time of the year is Passover. So you need a Roman fortress, Antonia Fortress. You need Pilate, the governor, to be here to supervise all the Jews coming to Temple Mount so that no trouble starts. And this becomes the place where Jesus brought to. Then, of course, we covered the church of the condemnation, flagellation condemnation. For me, Jesus carries his cross. He carries his cross all the way out through a gate part of the city wall.
Yes.
Just outside, you see here a quarry. That quarry, old quarry, they used to take the stones out for building.
Yes.
That old quarry becomes Golgotha, the place of the skull. A hill, a rock on which Jesus crucified. And next to it is the tomb, a tomb carved in bedrock. So as you can see, this
Why they said it was a new tomb.
yes. This model is correct in showing you how things were.
Sure.
That Golgotha, Calvary, place of crucifixion was outside the city walls. And it was close to a gate, high place, old quarry. Romans crucified people. And part of that old quarry, Jews carved in bedrock tombs for their dead.
As a matter of fact, these two Catholic churches are in the very same place that the Roman fortress, Antonia Fortress, was, where Jesus was judged, flogged, and handed over. Here, another holy church, Way of Sorrow.
Of the Adrian's triumphal arch. Triumphal arch, you have the big arch, which is showing outside, and you have small arches on the side. So this is the small arch becomes part of the church. We're still in the first and second station of the way of the cross. So the old becomes, it goes with the new. There are sisters, like I said, under every house, under every street. You go back in time, you go to the Crusaders, you go to the Byzantines, there's something everywhere. You're walking under every house.
Because the water's so critical, they need to capture
Well,
water.
even houses, even streets, not just cisterns. So the city is built on top of the other.
Yes.
This is why we said the present day street is not the level. There's something underneath everywhere you go.
Some of them carries the cross
Here.
from Jesus to a certain point.
At this
Then
holy site.
Station 7, they see that he's close to the cross.
This is the supposed location where Simon was commanded to carry the cross for Jesus, as he could not carry the cross all by himself from the fatigue and the blood loss. And they led him away. They seized one Simon of Cyrene, who was coming in from the country, and laid on him the cross to carry it behind Jesus. And there followed him a great multitude of the people and of women who were mourning and lamenting for him. But turning to them, Jesus said, "Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For behold, the days are coming when they will say, Blessed are the barren and the wombs that never bore and the breasts that never nursed. Then they will begin to say to the mountains, Fall on us, and to the hills, cover us. For if they do these things when the wood is green, what will happen when it is dry?" 2 others who were criminals were led away to be put to death with him. And when they came to the place that is called the Skull, there they crucified him, and the criminals, one on his right and one on his left. And Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." And they cast lots to divide his garments. And the people stood by, watching before. But the rulers scoffed at him, saying, "He saved others. Let him save himself, if he is the Christ of God, his chosen one." The soldiers also mocked him, coming up and offering him sour wine, and saying, "If you are the king of the Jews, save yourself." There was also an inscription over him, "This is the King of the Jews." One of the criminals who were hanged railed at him, saying, "Are you not the Christ? Save yourself and us." But the other rebuked him, saying, Do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed justly, for we are receiving the due reward of our deeds. But this man has done nothing wrong. And he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." And he said to him, "Truly I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise." It was now about the 6th hour, and there was darkness over the whole land until the 9th hour. While the sun's light failed, and the curtain of the temple was torn in two, then Jesus, calling out with a loud voice, said, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." And having said this, he breathed his last. Now when the centurion saw what had taken place, he praised God, saying, "Certainly this man was innocent." And all the crowds that had assembled for this spectacle, when they saw what had taken place, returned home beating their breasts. And all his acquaintances and the women who had followed him from Galilee stood at a distance, watching these things. Now there was a man named Joseph, from the Jewish town of Arimathea. He was a member of the council, a good and righteous man, who was not consented to their decision and action, and he was looking for the kingdom of God. This man went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then he took it down and wrapped it in a linen shroud and laid him in a tomb cut in stone, where no one had ever yet been laid. It was the day of preparation, and the Sabbath was beginning. The women who had come with him from Galilee followed and saw the tomb and how his body was laid. Then they returned and prepared spices and ointments. On the Sabbath they rested according to the commandment. Here is an Armenian church, also dedicated. In remembrance of Christ's suffering, and crown of thorns ahead. And up there you see an ancient Christian symbol, the Kiro sign, meaning Christ. And here, the Armenian flag. Here's the exterior of the Armenian chapel. And here we have the Armenian church, just outside the small chapel, in memory of the Armenian martyrs who were butchered for their faith in 1915. As Christ himself said, "If the world hates you, it is because it has hated me first."